Mark Skaar on the Skaar Kaard on 103.7 The Fox. Proud to welcome in Doug Henthorn. How are you, sir?
Good. How are you, Mark?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for being on with us today.
Thanks for having me, man. Honored to be here.
You have a new record coming out May 6th, and it's cleverly called 3.
Yeah, well, I wrestled with a few different album titles, and, they all seemed a little too precious, so I just went with 3. And, Led Zeppelin 3 is my favorite record, so I'll just do that. I'll do what they did.
That's
only
perfect.
Not quite as good.
So I understand that some of these songs, or maybe a lot of them, have been kind of gestating since pre-COVID.
Yeah. My first, solo release was called Cold Medicine, and that was released back in 2016. And, and when that one was done, when that was over, I started working on the next record, like you do. But then shortly after that, I had some health issues, and, not to be dramatic, but, everybody has, I think, their first kind of brush with death. And, when you realize time's not unlimited. And so I wrote a lot of stuff right in that time period that when I went back and looked at it, a little dark, but not depressing by any means. But anyway, I decided to shelve all that stuff and moved on with my second release, the LLC, which was more of just a kind of straight-ahead blues rock record. And when COVID hit, with lockdown and everything, all that stuff that I'd written in the dark period, as I like to call it, just kind of started to resonate and make a lot more sense. Because I think everybody during lockdown was so obviously more contemplative, kind of looking inward, because you couldn't do anything, right?
Right.
And so now it's like, okay, this stuff, I actually really, really like it now. And it feels right. And I, of course, tweaked them here and there. So this is like, for the most part, material I've kind of been sitting on for a while that just didn't feel right to release yet. But it feels good now. I'm real happy with it. I'm excited that it's trickling out. I'm, had the one single, Forewarned and Failing, that's out already. And then the second single, Drive, which is actually just a cover of the Cars tune. I've always loved that tune, Drive, but never really liked the 80s production of it. Not that it wasn't great. I love the song, but I just always thought, man, it sounds like 1985 to me. So I tried to put a little more hair on it, if that makes sense.
Certainly. Speaking of the quarantine, Doug, you're one of those folks that I watched eagerly as you were doing jam sessions in your basement.
Thanks, man. That was strange. What strange times, right? Mm-hmm. Good Lord. Yeah, I started doing those, mainly because I was so bored, and I know everybody was. Creative people, I guess. I consider myself that. Mm-hmm. Had to do something. And so it actually kind of became fun, became something to look forward to. Hopefully it was something that everybody could kind of enjoy. But I definitely had some fun with it. They're still out there, I guess. Need to go back and check them out.
We're talking with Doug Henthorn, and I also want to make mention on this new record, 3, I call them records because I'm old. And
yeah, I do the same thing.
In addition to the Cars cover, there's also covers by the Eagles and the Beatles.
Yeah, Wasted Time probably has always been my favorite Eagles tune. Don Henley, what a genius, I think. And I've always wanted to do a cover of Wasted Time. And not to, once again, Drive is awesome and Wasted Time is awesome, but I always thought Wasted Time was a little bit precious, with the orchestration and everything. It's great. It's perfect. But for me to do it, I had to put a little more hair on it. And so I did the same kind of treatment I did with Drive, I'd like to think. And I'm excited for that one, too. I mean, that'll come out when the whole record's released on May 6th. Mm-hmm. I think people will enjoy that one. And then, Across the Universe. I've always loved that. I mean, so many people have remade that tune and loved that song. But I always thought, the original one was just a demo that John Lennon had made, and I think Phil Spector, from what I've read or seen, I could be wrong, but he just kind of added some orchestration to it and mixed it, and that was what you get. I always thought, man, it's so sad they didn't really give it a fair shot and track it as a band. And which have you seen? I'm sure you've seen the the new Beatles doc, or whatever you want to call it, you can see them working on it. Like for a minute or two, they're actually working on it. I'm like, yes, that's what they should have done. Anyway, so I'm excited for people to hear that one too. I think I've tried to stay true to the original without just covering it. It's got stylistically my kind of thing. I'd like to think there. I'd like to hope John Lennon would think it was cool, but I guess we'll never know.
To digress for just a second, Doug is referencing Get Back, and if our listeners haven't seen it, they should.
Yes, Get Back. Sorry, I couldn't remember the title of it. Yeah, I've watched it like 2 or 3 times. It's really so good.
We're with Doug Henthorn, and I'd like to delve back because you got on my radar, like probably a lot of people, with a great band called Healing Sixes. You had about a 15-year run, 4 albums. So good.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, man. Yeah, that was a great 15 years. That's a long time, too. Wow. Me and Eric Sailors put that band together back in like 98, 99. And it evolved so many times. We had Jason Bonham on drums for a few years, and Kevin Shirley, the producer, was involved for a few years as well, and kind of went through some different players. But I'm really proud of everything we did in that band, and accomplished a lot, too. Spent a lot of time on the road, a lot of time writing and recording, and the things you do in a rock band.
And, of course, you mentioned Eric Sailors. He's in a great band called the Steepwater Band, who we've had on the show before from, based in Chicago.
Right, yep.
And I know you two bands did shows together, too.
Yes, we did. Back in the day, in the Healing Sixes days, we do a lot of shows here in town. We did 1 or 2 in Chicago with them. Yeah, great band, good guys. I still get together and have margarita lunches with Eric about every other week. So we're still pretty close, which is good.
Talking with Doug Henthorn before we started rolling, Doug brought up the fact that he was signed to a major label back before Healing Sixes, a band called Pod, and their music is now out there. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, my first kind of foray into, I guess, the music industry. I was in a band called Pod. It was like 1995, and we got a record deal back when that was a thing, and got a record deal with Columbia Records. John Kolodner was our A&R guy, and I don't know if you know who John Kolodner is or was. But
oh, yeah.
He's retired now, but yeah, one of the, I don't know, I venture to say one of the most notorious A&R guys of our generation, but total character. We signed with Columbia, and it was one of those pipe dreams, where they sent us out to L.A. and put us up in apartments and rental cars, and we recorded an album. And then, as it turned out, Columbia just shelved the project, so the whole thing kind of fell apart, and the album was never released or saw the light of day up until this past winter, when our buddy Stephen D. Cutis, helped facilitate the record actually being released. And now it's, to make things more confusing, it's the name of the band's been changed to Soma, but it's out there. Soma, Headed for the Zeros is the name of the record. And it's a progressive rock band through and through. I mean, it was like, I don't even know if I can play that fast anymore on a guitar. I mean, it's like, we were all late 20s, early 30s, and all our joints were well lubricated still. And but I really enjoyed listening to it, having it come out and listening to it again. Brings back all the memories.
An artwork by Hugh Syme.
Yeah, Hugh Syme did the artwork. He, of course, did all the Rush records, and you can totally tell. I mean, one look at it. You know how that is. When you see artwork by Hugh Syme, it's pretty much immediately recognizable, just like Storm Thorgerson with all the Pink Floyd stuff. You can just tell. Oh yeah, I know that guy.
Talking with Doug Henthorn, and of course your history with Joe Bonamassa. You're recording T for One. It's a great version.
Thanks. That was a great time. That was my first meeting with Joe. Kevin Shirley, the producer, who's been Joe's producer since that record, kind of hooked us up with that. He'd helped produce a record for Healing Sixes when Jason was playing, and he went on to produce Joe's record, You and Me, and Jason was playing drums on I'm not sure if Jason played drums on that whole record, but he definitely played drums on T for One. And Kevin kind of convinced Joe to let this guy from Indianapolis come out and sing it for him because Joe wasn't completely comfortable with it at the time. And yeah, went out to Las Vegas and recorded that tune and had a great time. That's another great experience. And that, luckily, as it turns out, it's a Joe fan favorite, I think. Ended up going out and doing a little European stint with him a few years back. Performed it with him at the Albert Hall and the Hammersmith, which was awesome. Great to put my feet on those stages.
We're talking with Doug Henthorn. 3 comes out May 6th. And
that's right.
So we want people to grab it. And I know you've got some goodies on your website. I'd like you to plug that and how people can get your stuff.
Well, thanks, Mark. Yeah, DougHenthorn.com. Pretty easy to remember, I think. I've got a dedicated page on my website about the release of 3 and kind of with minute-to-minute updates about singles being released and also pre-orders if anyone out there still has a CD player. Although, I saw on the news like just yesterday, they're talking about CD sales are on the rise again. Mark,
Yep.
Have you heard that?
I have.
Which is encouraging. Of course, vinyl is always better, but it's nice to know that some people still want to have hard copy CDs. So if anyone would like to pre-order it, which if you do, they go out the week or so before the release. And, as well as there's some photo galleries and things that kind of document the whole recording process and the writing process that kind of went through COVID and all that. So I don't think it's a bad website to check out if anybody has some time out there. DougHenthorn.com.
Mm-hmm. And you're on all the socials.
Yes. Well, I'm not really on Twitter. Are you on Twitter?
Barely.
Yeah. Okay. See, I have an account, but I haven't even looked at it in like 7 years.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'm on pretty much everything else. Facebook, it's like Facebook.com, the Henthorn LLC, and then Instagram is at DougHenthornMusic.com. But yeah, Twitter, I don't know. I almost feel like I might as well just step out on my back patio and just yell at the neighbors. You know what I mean? I just never really understood Twitter.
I hear you. TikTok's kind of that way for me too, but I digress.
Okay, are you on that? Because
No.
I've got Stevie D and my buddy Travis Easter and my buddy Joel. They're all on TikTok. And they're like, Doug, you got to get on TikTok. And I'm like, oh man, really? I don't know.
See, you and I are the last 2 holdouts, apparently.
Apparently we are. Okay, well, you let me know when you give in, and I'll do the same, I guess.
Doug, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. All the best going forward. I've always been a fan of your soulful voice and love it. Continue, please.
Well, thank you, Mark. I really, really appreciate you, man. And it's been an honor to talk to you. So keep me posted. I'd love to talk again sometime.
We will definitely do that. For Doug Henthorn, I'm Mark Skaar. This is a Skaar Kaard on 103.7 The Fox.